Hey yo, welcome to the Mamuji Show. The EFF back from Karl Marx University. Level 3 is going to kick in on the 1st of June. And welcome them to the Mamuji Show. You know, a whole lot of things have been happening in this republic, and there's a lot that the coronavirus has done to really expose politicians. Remember the beginning of March when the whole coronavirus stay at home request, if I may say, by the president started to kick in. The economic freedom fighters then also urged their supporters to stay at home. I remember the president of the economic freedom fighters, Julius Malema, was carrying his child on his back and sent a message on Twitter saying, "Fighters, stay at home." And that was the whole aspect of it, if you look at the economic freedom fighters. And then the DA launched Corona Cast on their YouTube channel on Tuesdays and Thursdays, sort of shadowing the government in terms of coming up with ideas. For instance, when the government talked about their plan for the whole lockdown and what the intentions are supposed to be for the lockdown, the DA also did the same thing. And when the shutdown continues, we call it lockdown, obviously. When it continued from stage 5 going all the way to stage 4 up to stage 3, the DA also on the Coronacast YouTube channel came with a model of how to safely open the country for business, right? Obviously they received a whole lot of a pushback from the Twitterati and all the social medias. On the other side, from March, the EFF's plan was to say, guys, we're going to be quiet. We're not going to keep the government accountable. What we're going to be doing on our YouTube channel is to each and every week we come up with a reading initiative where most of the commissars of the economic freedom fighters will come through and take their viewers through the books which they would then be talked about at that time, you know. Whereas if you check the ANC YouTube channels or the social feed, the last I checked, there was nothing that they would talk about, I guess, because maybe they just assume because they're the governing party, what they could do is all the other governmental departments which are dealing with the coronavirus would then be able to just put out the messages. So I've checked that the economic freedom fighters obviously are trying to build up a groundwork of their supporters and really do school them about their communist slash social ideals. They spoke about Karl Marx, the Revolution book, or the other one was Karl Marx, and the Communist Manifesto, where they are espousing and also trying to tell the people that the 7 cardinal pillars of the economic freedom fighters comes from the Communist Manifestos. They had 10 pointers there, the Communist Manifesto, right? And as the days go by, they never really got engaged with how they're going to speak to the societies about the coronavirus. Their message was stay at home, stay at home. If you look at Boysen Ndlozi's Twitter timeline, stay at home, stay at home. This is what the World Health Organization says, stay at home, stay at home. And eventually, I'm not quite sure as to yesterday, that's where they had their virtual, that's the economic freedom fighters, they had their virtual press conference. And I watched the whole press conference. It took over 1 hour and 30 minutes. To sum it up, it's just basically a criticism of the ANC government. They didn't come up with solution. And excuse me, when they were asked, what do you think of moving from stage 4 to stage 3 by the government on the 1st of June, they said, listen, there are a lot of statistics in terms of the death that's skyrocketing. And when they were asked about what about the economy, what about the economy, and they said, listen, we actually don't give a damn about the economy right now. What we care about is the life of our people. And when they were asked, how long then, what's your plan? How long would we close the country up? Say, as long as it takes. And Julius Malema was like, hey, listen, man, who cares about the white monopoly capital businesses if they go under? We'd rather strap on our boots, just to paraphrase, and die at home from the coronavirus if it comes to our home. And in terms of your religious freedom, hey, all you religious folks, do not go to church. EFF followers, do not go to church. I mean, it was like clown show, to tell the truth. No solution, just, nothing else. It was unbelievable. And I think one thing about this coronavirus is that it's really exposing this whole different kind of stakeholders, different kind of industries, the religious communities, who are then supposed to be in the front line in terms of assisting people when they are sick, to look after them. But to be fair, obviously the government closed down the churches. If you are a believer and you believe in God and you believe in Jesus Christ, that this is the ultimate power, and that when I'm on planet Earth, my sole aim is to do good, love thy neighbor, have a good moral standard, and abide by the ethos and the scriptures, that when my times come to leave this planet, my aim is go to heaven and dwell in there for eternity. This was thwarted by everything, that, hey, the government is way important than religion. The doctors and the health industry are more important than religion. Your prayer doesn't matter. Your religious freedom doesn't matter. You know why? Because there was a church or religious gathering which was taking place in Bloemfontein some time ago, and a whole number of people got infected. I believe the African Christian Democratic Party, Mr. Kenneth Mishwe also was infected, and that's why now they deem that churches are not important. Then later on, Mr. Kenneth Mishwe came out and say, listen, we need to open up churches, as a Christian political party. But then he also said, alcohol shouldn't be sold. You see? So you have a whole lot of people misunderstanding the politics and the constitution, because anybody who's out there who drinks alcohol must be fighting and protecting the rights of religious folks to be able to go and practice their religion. And people like Kenneth Mishwe also, as a Christian man, as well as a leader of a Christian political party, he must be out there fighting for the rights of people to drink alcohol. So my story actually is that if you love democracy, if you love our constitution, you're supposed to fight for things that you 101, if I may. If you 101% disagree with those things, but you go out there and fight for the rights of those people that you disagree with vehemently, and yeah, so that's what just has been happening throughout. And initially, when this whole thing was happening, when the soldiers, about 70,000 plus South African National Defence Forces, were out in the streets, the South African police services were out in the streets, when they started making people do the frog marches, push-ups, and slapping people all over the show, I saw a tweet from a leader of the third opposition, well, the second opposition, Julius Malema of the EFF, saying that, people must be beaten up. I was surprised. Say, listen, people must be beaten up. There was a guy who was drunk and chatting back to the police officer, and they're like, that one needs some serious clapping. That folk need a good Varam clap. And on the other side, the DA were busy. They quickly had their coronavirus help desk. They had the free toll numbers, or the numbers that they put out, that if your rights are being abused by the law enforcement agencies, call them. Then they came up with the labor help desk as well, so to help the people who need to apply for the UIF. They also had one of the best interviews that I've ever seen on their CoronaCast YouTube, speaking to e-commerce CEOs. I mean, I've seen interviews on ENCA, SABC, as well as Newsroom Africa, with some of the folks who are on e-commerce. But I mean, the interview that Steenhuisen had with the CEOs was a very good interview, and they also called some labor law experts, and they also called on a variety of people who then were informing the South African masses about their rights as well during the coronavirus. They explained the Disaster Management Act and what needs to be done and what's not to be done, and the rationale behind the banning of cigarettes. And my take is that this thing, the business, there was supposed just to be a way in which people could be able to conduct business, especially selling online, and it would have prompted more and more people to register online and try to come up with ways for them to make their business survive, but that just didn't happen. The government didn't understand. And one other thing that's kind of close to me is the health and I forgot the other lines. It's your salons, and it's health and beauty industry. I mean, I have a guy that I guess I'll call a friend. He worked at a salon, paying a rent each and every month, and he's on his third month. At home, he's got siblings. One is young, and he really can't be able to make ends meet. And when I spoke to him and said, "Hey, listen, man, I'm watching the press conference. I will tell you what Minister of Kokta, Nkosazana Zuma, has to say when it comes to your industry as to whether you're going to be opening. I think it was just after a month where he says, hey man, I'm struggling. And so I listened to it, and one of the folks who were asking questions to the ministers asked and say, are you going to be opening the health and beauty industry? And the minister Nkosazana Zuma just said, hey folks, we're not going to be opening. All those people who are like barbers and people who the hairstylists and so forth, what you guys need to do is to go online and try to have an online tutorials of how you're going to teach your customers to do their hair, to shave their hair, as if those people after a month, where they don't even have money to get data in order for them to set up businesses, and that's if they want to set up businesses of which they're going to teach the people in the industry to be able to do their hair, to shave their hair, and then from that, when everybody knows about the whole industry of the business that they're doing, and then who else then are they going to shave? Because now they've taught everyone to do that. And I thought that was a smack in the face of people who just want to open up their businesses and do their businesses. Well, we move into level 3 in 2 days time. Today it's the 30th of May, Saturday. On Monday, level 3, still folks at the barber shops are not going to be able to conduct their business. So I guess they're going down, and which is a very sad indictment on our government, and just for everybody who loves to say that the government can be able to take care of people. The government cannot. The government doesn't know how to build a business, and it's not the government's job really. The government's job is to, for the military to be able to defend the borders of the republic, and for also in order to create an environment where businesses would then be able to thrive. That's the job of the government, and also to be able to help level in order to level a playing field for people to be able to thrive, to protect their freedoms and the whole constitution. That's the job of the government. So if you ever hear government says that they will find a job for you, just know that's just pure lies. But it's also different when you compare that with the political parties like the economic freedom fighters, because the EFF really don't believe in borders. They believe in porous borders, and they believe in South Africa being no more. They believe in the whole continent being ruled, or having one president, having one army, and having one currency. That's what they're pushing for. And we've been seeing that during this corona closed down era, where they've been doing their groundwork on YouTube in order to help people understand about Karl Marx, Vladimir Lenin, Franz Fanon, the whole communist / socialist ideal that they're talking about. And it's been interesting. And I'm going to be giving my take on some of the presentations that they've made about that, and to give you a view, as much as we all know that this is like a pie in the sky. Communism has killed over 80 million people, Socialism, maybe over 20 million people. That's what they do. But the funny thing about anyone who likes communism or socialism, they always say that, hey man, I think in that country socialism or communism hasn't been implemented very well. That's their stance until you see a communism implemented, and then millions and millions of people do die, because communism is about taking everything from business folks and redistributing it to everyone. It doesn't work. And my favorite one was the nationalization of private hospital or private places of practices. I mean, it's hilarious. Think about it. You have people who've started the private clinics maybe in the 80s and the 70s. Maybe 4 or 5 people come up to get, together. Some been practicing overseas and say, listen, I think this is a business niche that I want to start. They start their business now. The CEO, chairman, and founders of those private hospitals or private clinics. And then they've got their shareholders, they've got their shares in the stock exchange, their businesses are up and running. And then when it comes to communism, communism is like, hey, listen, starting from today, I'm taking over your stuff. I'm nationalizing the whole stuff, And it's so funny because people who subscribes to business, to communism, they mostly like to just take from other business owners instead of building their own, And it's just that we've been unfortunate, as a republic, that during the Cold War with the USSR, the Soviet Union, which was practicing communism, as well as the United States was practicing, obviously, democracy and free market and so forth. But most people like to think of capitalism as an ideology. Meanwhile, capitalism is not an ideology, because it's a system of business, whereas democracy and the Constitution and all the Bill of Rights would then be what is an ideology. And one of the other things that most people don't know is that communism is against religion. Communism wants to do away with religion, and whereas most democracies are what they are, the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and so forth, came to being as a result of Christianity. If you look at it, you can talk about the Magna Carta in the United Kingdom. You can speak about the Declaration of Independence in the United States. I mean, those folks who, most of them ran away from UK, France, Germany, and say we're sick and tired of the king telling us, who to worship and so forth, and interfering with the church. We just want to go to a place where we can worship freely. And when they got into the States, you can talk about the politics of it and of how they had to eventually settle in the US, but they vowed and said, listen, we're going to separate the church affairs with the state, and everybody has a right to worship whomever that they want to worship without the church interference. I mean, without the government's interference. So that's just what's been happening. Now, looking at the confusion of the corona updates and government gazettes about the laws, and I mean, it's just been a mess. You wait. They call it a pandemic since the Spanish flu in, I think, 1917, 1918, over 100. I mean, if you were having a pandemic in a country and never once that the president of the republic was on time in order to give a speech about a pandemic, I mean, what other reason going forward would make the president to be on time to speak about whatever that you speak about. I mean, there was even an instant where the nation waited and didn't pitch, gave speech the following day. The same thing applies with stage 3 or level 3. The president spoke about level 3 and said the relevant cabinet ministers will then come and give guidance as to the intricacies of how the level 3 stages would unfold and so forth. Well, the following day it didn't happen. The ministers were no show. So we can only make assumptions. Other assumptions would be they wanted to get the effects right in terms of selling alcohol, because there were some sort of leaks in the social medias that the president, that the liquor stores would open maybe from 9 o'clock up until 12 o'clock. That would just be about 3 hours. And remember, this is the same thing that has happened when it came to exercising. The government said that people should then exercise from 6 to 9. And as a result, you saw a whole lot of people exercising from 6 to 9, and they were just congested and overcrowded. I remember the iconic pictures on the social medias of folks in Cape Town running. It was from 6 to 9. And other people were like, oh, look, now people are just running all over the place. Not thinking that if they had spread out the exercising time from, let's just say, from 6 in the morning up until 6 o'clock in the evening, people will run at different times and therefore not have a congestion where then people would not be able to practice social distancing. So the same thing applies when it comes to alcohol. I think they didn't come the following day to speak about alcohol because of they didn't want to speak about alcohol without getting the effects right, to say, hey, let's open from 9 to 5, because if we open from 9 to 12, there's going to be a run-in. There's going to be, everybody's going to be at the bottle store and then buying alcohol, and then they will not be able to practice social distancing. So I think it's one of the reasons. And also now we haven't, if you want to see how incompetent government is, and it doesn't matter which political party that's going to be coming through in, this is manifesting in terms of now opening schools. The schools are just not ready, just for 2 grades. I mean, the matriculants and grade 7. On Monday, most schools are not going to be ready, And on top of that, now the businesses, I've been speaking to a whole lot of different friends of mine who are in different industries, man, and they're struggling. There's going to be a whole lot of shutting down of business. I mean, the small and medium business, I think they were given about 500 million rands. I mean, just a simple, if you do a internet search on how much does the small business and medium business make in a quarter, it's about an average of 63 billion. So that will make it 21 billion per month, in terms of what the industry makes. That's before being taxed by SARS. So the government was at least supposed to put together 20 billion rands in order to help the small businesses. Well, obviously they did that after 30 days, and so now, and when people are applying online, I spoke to a friend of mine whom their relative is a business person. They would log in into the system, and the system will kick them out, because you can imagine 20 billion industry is scrambling and logging on to get the crumbs of 500 million rands, and they are short of 19 billion and 500 million rands. So it's been real bad. I'm looking forward to the 1st of June and just see, one can only hope and pray that slowly but surely business will just start opening, and then people just put on their mask and do their social distancing, and we get on with our lives. Thanks for watching. This is the Mamuji Show. See you soon.